Hey there, friends. Let's talk about fasciated tomato blossoms, what they are and what to do about them, if anything. Typically, you find what they call fasciated blossoms on heirloom tomatoes in particular. And basically what it is, it's generally the first crop of flowers that come up on your tomato plant, and two or more of the blossoms have somehow fused together to create one big blossom. And I'll show you an example here in a minute, but it's pretty obvious because it's a lot bigger than the other blossoms on your plant. And it's what creates those really funky looking tomatoes that you see sometimes at the market that are marketed as heirloom tomatoes, the ones that are all different really weird shapes with different crevices and holes. That is a tomato from a fasciated blossom, and they may even be called fasciated tomatoes. So there's nothing inherently wrong with a fasciated blossom or a fasciated tomato. The thing is though, when you've got multiple blossoms fusing together, it basically means you've got multiple tomatoes fusing together. And wherever they fuse, you're gonna have like a seam of sorts that kind of divides out the tomato. And a lot of times you'll have these holes that are kind of in there. It can have more rot. If you cut open the tomato, you'll have less meat and more like tough areas. And then you can have parts of it that are perfectly fine. It's a perfectly edible fruit. It's just generally a larger portion of that big tomato. And a lot of times they're huge because there are 2 or 3 tomatoes in one. We'll just have some inedible portions. So it's totally up to you whether or not you keep your fasciated blossoms on your tomatoes. They may create a really cool looking fruit that's gonna be fun to show off on Pinterest or whatever, or eat. But you also can prune them and allow the energy to go to your blossoms that are creating one fruit that is a normal size and a normal shape. So again, it's totally up to you. I think I'm gonna keep maybe one fasciated blossom per plant just to see what it looks like, but I will prune the rest. So let me show you some examples of them. Tomato plants that I have in my garden are heirloom varieties. So I'm not surprised to come out here and see a fasciated blossom on most of them. This one in particular has a huge one, and so that's why I'm going to show you this one to start off with. So right here I've got the first set of blossoms on this plant. There are smaller ones and bigger ones, and then there's this ginormous one. But it's a huge blossom, and it generally has this look about it like a sunflower almost. Just bear with me. There it is. If you compare this to the other blossoms on the plant, it's huge. And the way that the stem is, the way it's like really thick and kind of hard to manage, tells me that there's like 2 stems there that have fused, and so this is probably 2 blossoms. So I could either just prune it off right there and allow the rest of the energy to go to these other blossoms. This one looks like a fused one too, maybe just a smaller one. And it looks like there might be one back here as well, but I'm not really sure. That may just be a normal blossom, but this one is definitely a fasciated blossom and will create one of those bigger, kind of funky looking heirloom tomatoes, which I don't necessarily have a problem with. I wouldn't want a bunch of them, but I think it'd be fun to at least watch one grow. And then there's one on this plant as well. So I've got all these blossoms up here, and then I have this one big blossom that again looks like there's 2 stems that have come together, and even though it's not open, I can just, I can just tell that this is 2 blossoms in one just because of the size of it. And then on this plant here, same thing. I've got all these little blossoms, and I've got this one huge blossom. Open up. It looks like, yeah, it's got this twisted, stem. It's really tough compared to the rest of them, and then a really big blossom. So this is probably 2 or 3 blossoms fused together. So it is, like I said, you'll see them usually the first blossoms that come out on your tomatoes if they're an heirloom variety, and then you'll have less of them as your plant continues to grow. This is definitely one right there on this one. That is what a fasciated blossom is. and that is what it produces, those big funky tomatoes that have all the weird shapes and crevices, because it's actually more than one tomato. So it's up to you what you want to do. If you don't like those kind of tomatoes, then just prune off the blossom like you've been pruning off the suckers. If you want to let one grow and see how big it gets, because it is kind of fun to see how big those tomatoes can get, then let one grow. There's really nothing wrong with them. It's just that oftentimes portions of those bigger tomatoes are inedible. So anyway, so that's a fasciated blossom. Go out and check out your plants. Again, you'll see these more on heirloom varieties than you will at the the varieties that you find at Lowe's and places like that. But you never know, one may crop up on any type of plant. So I'll talk to you guys later.